Good morning, everyone. I would like to start with our team's stance. Reduction of deforestation from the supply side is impossible. Therefore, tackling from demand side is the way to go. Before I begin my speech, I would like to make a rebuttal. Two rebuttals, in fact. First, they were talking about how the EU would supply the money to provide for the developing countries. Well, how is the EU going to do this when they're still trying to give money to Greece, to bail out Greece and Portugal and Spain? Also, they were saying how we did not provide a mechanism, but yes, we did. Our mechanism is that the big corporations that moved into these developing countries need to pay to fund. Okay, now I would like to begin my argument. I would like to give a 5-level analysis of 1, where compensation would come from, 2, the negative effects of the compensation would have in developed countries, 3, the issue of moral obligation, and 4, how developed countries are already fulfilling any obligation in any other ways, and 5, a harmful benefit analysis. Now, moving on. My first analysis, where compensation would come from. To begin with, there are very limited numbers of sources for funding farmers. The main international sources are the UN, the Copenhagen Accord mechanism, and the individual countries working in association with NGOs and private donors. Let's analyze these sources in turn in a breakdown of this point. Firstly, the UN is in effect barely alive. To give an example, in July 2009, the World Food Program reported it had to cut down its services. It only received 25% of what it needed for 2009 and 2010 financial year. 3 days ago, the head of the World Food Program was on TV on BBC and was appealing for countries to send 40 helicopters to Pakistan to feed over 10 million people who were suffering from drought. They were also appealing for the food itself. The total UN operating budget is only $5 billion US, and the problem is that it relies on the contributions from the UN, Japan, and Germany. And the US, Japan, and Germany. The US is leveraged to 110% of its GDP and is $13 trillion in debt.
Before you move on.
And it's in debt because of the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, and poor domestic housing markets. Japan is leveraged to over 190% in debt and has suffered from the global recession and quality problems and its manufacturing sector 6, i.e. car recalls. Germany is currently bailing out Greece and may also be called upon to bail out Spain and Portugal too. Turning to the second source of funding. So I'd like to talk about the Copenhagen Accord mechanism. We already proved to you that we would have to blow the entire budget to stand a chance of even maintaining the status quo. The Greenpeace's entire income in 2008 was $1.97 million US, with 2.86 million members. The trend was down in 2009.
Point of clarification.
To $1.74 million US due to the global economic recession. So this would not make a dent in the deforestation. Let's move to my second level of analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, there is such a thing as donor fatigue. In this case, we believe the correct term would be donor death. California can't get its kids into school for more than 4 days in a week. The UN can't feed the Pakistanians. Sooner or later, citizens of these developed nations are going to put pressure on the governments not to fund these developing nations. The last government in the UK, which was voted out of office, was seen as unpopular because it's promoting to join the EU. But the EU is corrupt and is a waste of money in the opinions of the UK public. Governments can't afford to force their people to contribute to international compensation initiatives. The result would be a backlash against A, the government itself, B, the developing countries, and C, global warming. Before I move on, yes, I would like to.
Yeah, ma'am. So now you are saying that we cannot do it, but you are agreeing that if we can do it, we should do it. We should do it, right?
I'm just stating why we can't do it, why short-term mechanism won't work. Let's move to the third part of my analysis, which is the issue of moral obligation. It's traditionally assumed that developed countries should help developing countries out of moral debt. Usually because of the historical fact of the Industrial Revolution, in combination with the colonial past. This moral debt is usually used to justify cross-country compensation or subsidization, and in order to solve environmental problems such as preserving rainforests. In the case of this motion, we are talking about the carbon output and global warming. The question then is, does this moral obligation apply to this debate? We believe it does. We do not believe a supply-side model is the option. We believe that the demand-side model would be the effective in addition to the model or debt is being resolved in other ways. Now for my fourth level of analysis, let's look at the alternative ways this moral debt is being fulfilled at a global level. I'm going to look at two case studies. One is called the demo. The international communities is developing fusion energy. The cost in terms of investment is huge. For example, the cost of the International Thermonuclear Experimental Nuclear Reactor is $15 billion US. Its replacement demo is around $50 billion US. Fusion offers a future of zero pollution energy. It would solve global warming and reduce pressures on rainforests for oil and wood resources. It would improve the standard of life for all human beings on the planet, including farmers. My second example is solar energy, which is currently being subsidized by the US and EU at levels of university research. And for my last analysis, I'd like to give the harm potential analysis. Given the harm potentiality generated with compensating countries and the risk of serious donor death, combined with the reaction against developing countries and environmental issues. Does the moral obligation argument hold any water? We say no because the movement, the government side, would clearly be seen as a waste of money. Our model offers people an option, where reduction is deforestation and the last partially hidden in the market mechanism. So I'd like to say in conclusion that we believe that the House on the government side model is not feasible or fundable. Thank you.